Hi, I'm Mike Cooper, Vice Chair of the Grace Harbor County Democrats. Welcome to 2020 Turn Grace Harbor Blue. We're here with our Vice Chair Jamie and our Secretary Stephen tonight, and we're going to bring you some really exciting candidates to talk to you and share information about how we're going to turn Grace Harbor blue. Most of you might remember that Grace Harbor slipped a little bit into the red column 4 years ago, and we intend to change that, because we think the voters in Grace Harbor know that Democrats represent the working men and women and the struggling families in this community, and we're going to help you find that out this evening. So one of the things I want to talk to you about first, though, as Democrats, we've put an extreme amount of energy into supporting our candidates through get out the vote efforts and radio advertising, and we need your help to buy that last little bit of great get out the vote advertising that we need to do. We have 24 days left, and there's plenty of opportunities for you to help. One of the ways you can help tonight is by going to our website, ghdemocrats.org, hit the donate button and donate $20.20 to the Grace Harbor Democrats on your credit card. When you do that, you'll get your dues paid for 2021, and you'll get a coupon in the mail for a Demo Burger meal the next time the Demo Burger booth is able to operate. So there it is right there, folks, on the screen. So we're going to have in a few minutes some candidates to talk to, and I'm not sure if our chair, Jamie, is ready to say hi to you or not. Are we going to be able to get Jamie on? There she is right there. So I'm going to quickly introduce our chair of the Grace Harbor Democrats, Jamie Nichols.
Hi guys, my name's Jamie. I am the current chair of the Grace Harbor County Democrats. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I just wanted to echo what Mike said. We have 24 days left. We really need to get out some work right now. You have the opportunity to volunteer through Grace Harbor Democrats Facebook page. You could send us a message or you could send us an email. We love volunteers. So feel free to sign up. We're really excited to meet people. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. And Stephen, I think we don't have our first guest here yet. Maybe we could put up a special message from the firefighters union.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I'm go ahead and keep this going on from the booth, and I do have something from the firefighters. Here we go.
Hello, Grace Harbor Democrats, sisters, brothers, and friends. My name is Ryan Reese, 5th District Representative of the Washington State Council of Firefighters. Unfortunately, with the state of our pandemic, I am unable to meet with you in person. However, we have all become well-versed in the many different virtual platforms, which allow us the opportunity to meet today. My roles and responsibilities as the representative of the 5th District include political action, education and research, formulating policy, and cultivating relationships amongst our membership. As we quickly approach Election Day, political action is our #1 priority. Election Day is a day where we all come together and support those who support our issues. Pretty straightforward, and quite honestly, the only route we as a labor organization can go. We all know elections have consequences, and we have been living with those consequences for the last 4 years. November 3rd is a day where we take our country back and continue the fight for our members, their families, and most importantly, the working class of America. As leaders, we acknowledge, accept, and respect that our members have their beliefs on so many issues. Some of you may lean one way, while others will lean the other. Where we should all find ourselves in agreement is on those issues that affect the working class. In Washington State, we have a very important governor's race. Governor Jay Inslee has a very long track record of supporting public pensions, collective bargaining, binding arbitration, workplace safety, presumptive disease coverage, the right to unionize, and so much more. His support on these issues has been well documented by both his words and his actions and today I'm asking for your support. In the 19th Legislative District, we have some very critical races as well. Both Senator Dean Tacko and Representative Brian Blake have both drawn challengers, and they are both in need of our support. As a moderate Democrat, Senator Tacko has the ability to speak for us in ways that yields sensible results. His unique way to work with both sides of the aisle will be important as we enter into this difficult legislative session. Representative Brian Blake is a champion for collective bargaining and workers' compensation issues. As a strong labor supporter, we know that Representative Blake has our back. Brothers and sisters, I encourage you to reach out to your members, your family, and your friends, and encourage them to vote for both of these individuals. Participating in elections is one of the key freedoms of American life. Many people and countries around the world do not have the same freedom, and it is important to exercise those rights. We need to stay true to those who have brought us success for so many years, and we will continue to support those who support our issues. Friends, I ask that you stay strong, you stay safe, and you stay informed. Have a great meeting, and again, thank you for the opportunity for me to be with you today. I hope to see you on the Hill very soon.
Biden, Inslee, and Everson are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to elect Joe Biden president, re-elect Governor Jay Inslee, and elect Mariana Everson state representative because they put people and public safety first before politics. Paid for by Grays Harbor County Democrats, P.O. Box 1423.
Well, thank you to the firefighters for that great message. And just want to remind you again that we are going to have some candidates coming in here real soon. First, your opportunity is to donate at ghdemocrats.org. If you donate $20.20, you will get your dues paid for 2021, as well as get a coupon for a demo burger meal the next time the demo burger booth is open. The Grays Harbor Democrats have some values that we talk about at every single one of our monthly meetings, and we want to share those with you right now, just as a reminder of what our values are in the Grays Harbor Democrats. Well, we're back again, and most of you probably know by now that this election could be the most important election in several years, perhaps in your lifetime. This presidential election is really about people's opportunity to marry the person they love, just like what you saw in the values. It's about the women's right to choose. It's about your health care. We have a president who right now is in the Supreme Court trying to undo the Affordable Care Act. while making false promises to seniors and the American people. Joe Biden is the candidate that we need to have in the White House so that we can move America forward again and unite the American public instead of having a person in the White House who's divisive and says things that causes the far right wing to get even more extreme and take violent actions like threaten the governor of the state of Michigan. So let's hear right now some words from Vice President Joe Biden.
200,000 deaths recorded as of today because of the coronavirus. It means there are empty chairs and dining room tables and kitchen tables that weeks and months ago were filled with a loved one, a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister. You can't lose the ability to feel the sorrow and the loss and the anger for so many lives lost. You can't let the numbers become statistics, a background noise.
Americans of all walks of life are putting their shoulders back and they're fighting for each other.
We see it in the doctors, the nurses, the home health care workers, and frontline workers who are risking their lives to save people they've never met. And we see it in so many of you.
Every single American deserves safety and peace of mind. This is not a matter of politics. It's a bracing reminder to all of us that we have to take this virus seriously. My prayers are with the families of the more than 207,000 Americans who've died from this virus. This cannot be a partisan moment. It must be an American moment. We have to come together as a nation.
Thank you. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, please remember, when you vote, your vote for Joe Biden is what's going to carry this country into the future with affordable health care and safe living conditions and workers' rights and women's rights and rights of the LGBT community. But we've got some races here in Washington State that mean a great deal to us. We have a gentleman that's running, that we've endorsed, that's running for state treasurer. Now, that's not a very exciting race to most people, but that's the person who really is responsible for paying attention to the state of Washington's finances. And Mike Pellisati is here with us to share a little bit about his campaign. He's running for state treasurer, and I'm going to just put him on, let him talk to you a little bit, introduce himself, and maybe we could have a little question and answer time while we're on the air. Mike, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much to the Grays Harbor Democrats for all of your support throughout this campaign. It's really made a big difference. I've had a chance to talk to a number of you before, and what really drives me in running for this office and got me into politics in the first place was getting corporate campaign donation entanglements out of politics. That's why I've always been, why as an elected official, I'm one of the only state elected officials who's always said no to corporate campaign donations. And, the legislature, it's allowed for me to lead on a lot of important issues, bills that I've introduced to get dark money out of Washington state politics, bills to have more political action committee transparency, and my Corporate Crime Act that increased penalties against corporations for the first time in nearly a century, finally making it so that the penalties against corporations get a little closer to matching the type of conduct that's taking place. And so much of these issues of financial transparency are so important for the position of state treasurer. And, I hear from constituents all the time, kind of like, well, what does the state treasurer do? Or how is our money working? And really what we need to be doing is making sure that people have a better idea of how their money's being spent, who's benefiting from the way their money's spent, and is it being used wisely? And that's one of the things that is going to be really important for me as state treasurer, is really advancing issues related to financial transparency. I'm going to form a transparency portal like the Pennsylvania state treasurer does, so people know how their money's actually being spent and who's benefiting. What elected officials have received contributions from the same groups that are now receiving state allocations. And so we have a lot of work to do related to state financial transparency, but we also have a lot to do with just getting us out of the current economic challenges that we're facing. One of the big things that comes up a lot is people ask me, well, what does the state treasurer do? And the job of the state treasurer is really to be representing you on very important boards and commissions that affect your financial well-being. The State Investment Board, which oversees all government pensions, for example, actually invests over $100 billion of your money and make sure that we protect pensions, protect workers' comp, protect the guaranteed education tuition program for those who are investing in their kids' education or grandkids' educational opportunities. The Economic Development Finance Authority, which provides small business grants throughout the state. The Housing Finance Committee, which makes sure that there's housing affordability finance, as well as continuous care for seniors. So when seniors age, they have more opportunities, or that there's financing for appropriate housing for them at different stages as they get older. This is really important work that makes a big difference in people's lives. And right now we have an incumbent state treasurer who just is not showing up for work. He has not shown up for more than half of his required meetings. The State Investment Board that I was telling you about, he has only attended 3 of the last 21 of those State Investment Board meetings. He sent staff to cover pretty much all of his meetings for the last few years. And that's just not going to get the job done in an economic crisis. I mean, at the June meeting, the first meeting after the recession was declared, the Republican incumbent not only wasn't personally attending that meeting, at the exact same time that meeting was going on, he was holding a fundraiser with bank lobbyists where he took a maximum check from the bank lobby. At that exact same time, he was supposed to be at the State Investment Board dealing with a $6 billion loss to your pension returns. The next meeting in July, he didn't show up. He had nothing else on his calendar at all. I mean, this just is not going to get the job done. I mean, we need someone who's going to show up. That's something I'm going to do every day as your state treasurer. And I'm going to make sure we're doing everything we can with our finances in a responsible, prudent way, but that is always in the best interest of working families and retired people at all times. It's something that I've done throughout my time in the legislature. It's what I've done before that when I oversaw, or I should say when I managed a state unit of financial examiners, auditors, and analysts as an assistant attorney general, where I returned over $30 million back to taxpayers through my work. So, and the work of the unit. So I am just really excited to be with all of you today. I'm happy, Mike, to answer a question or two if we have time for that.
Sure. You talked a little bit about the State Investment Board, and that's really important, I know, to all the public employees, which we have thousands of in Grays Harbor County, Department of Corrections employees and county employees, city employees around that are all on public pensions. Tell me a little bit about the state treasurer's role in protecting those pensions.
Yeah, no, great question. So the treasurer sits on the State Investment Board. It's one of the most important duties that your state treasurer has, is to be showing up and protecting those pension dollars. And as Mike's pointing out, these aren't just for state employees. These are at first responders, people at the municipal levels, at the city level, at the county level, you name it. This is where your pension dollars are protected. And it is absolutely the job of the state treasurer to be showing up and doing that work. And I like to point out the current Republican incumbent's predecessor hardly ever missed a meeting. He only had to rely on emergency coverage one time in his 8 years. He chaired the board. It was so important. And his predecessor, Mike Murphy, Treasurer Mike Murphy, actually withdrew his endorsement of the incumbent over the horrid attendance that the incumbent has had related to these State Investment Board meetings, and because of the subpar performance that he's had in this role. And so, I mean, this is, like I said, it's a time for all hands on deck. We need to be doing everything we can. And the State Investment Board is so important that you have somebody showing up to be watching out for your pension dollars.
Thanks. And Mike, I know the governor's going to be presenting his budget here in December, and the state, because of the decline in our economy, is faced with a $4 billion shortfall, I think is where we are right now. So when the governor's preparing that budget, what role will the state treasurer play in helping the legislature and the governor get through this crisis?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So prior to our current treasurer, the state treasurer is usually included in a lot of the budget discussions. And that's something I look forward to doing as state treasurer again, which is making sure that I'm included as part of discussions and laying out a good, essentially fiscal guardrails, financial guardrails for the legislature, so they know what is expected by our bond rating agencies. Our bond rating agencies have been clear what they expect and how we're going to deal with this budget shortfall. It's, dealing with using appropriate budget tools related to our budget. And that means, looking at new revenue as well as appropriate cost cutting methods. making sure that we take a measured drawdown of our rainy day fund, our budget stabilization account, and relying on federal funds. I mean, that's what they're expecting. That's what I'm going to communicate clearly to the legislature so that we're staying on track and making sure we're doing everything we can to improve the bond ratings that we have.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time, but Mike, I want to give you the opportunity to tell folks how to get a hold of your campaign if they want to help, volunteer, or make a contribution to your campaign.
Well, thanks, Mike. We have run a campaign, a grassroots campaign. We have more individual contributions than any state treasurer race in the history of our state. I mean, this is exciting. The problem is we're still running a race against somebody who has already bought $140,000 worth of television time that you're going to be seeing soon, that he doesn't even have money in his account for. And so we're anticipating a lot of kind of outside money coming in to try to back him up at the last second. And so it is absolutely critical that if you can help in any way to go to elect Mike P, as in MikePelliciotti.com. So electmikep.com. And if you can support the campaign in any way, financially, it'd be a huge help. Also, getting involved in the coordinated campaign through the state party really makes a big difference in terms of making sure we're getting out the vote. And that's what's going to get us across the finish line. We're only a couple weeks away. But any support you can provide, I mean, truly those $5, $10, $20 donations are what it's fueling us. It's going to get us across the finish line. And I'm really excited that we're going to be the first state treasurer in decades to always reject corporate campaign donations and really make sure we're representing the people of the state of Washington at all times.
Yes, and look forward to seeing you again as your campaign progresses. Good luck on Election Day. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Pelliciotti, the Democratic candidate for state treasurer.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Representative, it's always good to see you. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
And before we go to our next candidate that we're going to be talking to, because I think we're waiting for a couple people to come and log in and join us, we do have a very important race for Commissioner of Public Lands. And that's Hillary Franz is running for re-election. Commissioner of Public Lands is the person that oversees millions of acres of state forest trust land that, when properly managed, puts monies into our school system. Should have asked Mike about how he manages that money. The other thing that they do is oversee those lands when it comes to wildfire. The Department of Natural Resources has the largest fire department in the state of Washington. And Commissioner Franz has been very active in working to try to get additional resources to not only manage our forest better, but prevent fires and be ready to respond to those fires. And I think we have a short video here with some information on Commissioner Hillary Franz, don't we, Stephen?
Hey, Mike, where would I be if I wasn't here to disappoint you? I actually didn't get that one loaded up and ready to go. So I do have our next guest ready to go when you are, though.
Okay, we don't have Hillary ready to go.
I don't have that video, no.
Okay, I'm sorry, I should have given you some more warning. Well, we'll go ahead and go to our next guest. I was waiting for the person that's going to be joining him, but that's all right. Now we have, looks
so
like we've got.
Can I do the introduction then, since I can see him?
Go ahead.
I can see him, you can't. So I'm really excited because when we're at Grace Harbor, we're like miles and miles from everything. And yet we have one of the best representatives in the United States Congress. I'm really excited to bring in our next guest, who is Congressman Derek Kilmer. Thanks for joining us. And I'll let Mike talk to you because he's way better at this, but I'm always excited when Derek's there because you're no stranger to Grace Harbor. You show up every day, whether we're talking about North Shore Levee or, I'm going to stop because I'm going to steal all the great things you do for Grace Harbor, and I don't need to do that. I'm going to let you and Mike talk, though.
Well, thank you, Stephen. We're still getting used to this technology, Congressman Kilmer. So we're having some fun with it, though. Derek, great. Thanks for joining us. And
Good to see you.
I'm going to let you spend a few minutes introducing yourself, talking about what you've been doing in Congress, and then hopefully in just a few minutes, your roommate will be joining us. Your roommate in Washington, D.C., not your roommate in this Washington.
Yeah,
so,
my other roommate's in the other room right now with my kids.
That's right, you do.
It's great to see you, Mike, and great to see you, Stephen. And hello to everybody who's watching tonight from home. I wish we could be together in person, but It's great to be with you virtually, and I appreciate you inviting me to say a few words. And listen, when I've had the opportunity to visit with the Grays Harbor Democrats in the past, I've highlighted the important work that Democrats have done in our nation's capital, working on everything from campaign finance reform to expanding access to affordable health care. We've talked about our efforts to provide relief to folks who are hurting in the midst of this pandemic, and there's a lot of them. I've talked about our efforts to stand up to the existential threat of climate change and our efforts to embrace a pretty simple concept, science. But tonight, I want to talk about something a little bit more personal. A couple of months ago, I lost a colleague and a dear friend, and America lost really one of the greatest Americans, Congressman John Lewis. He was my hero. Last year, I got a chance to take Sophie to Selma, Alabama for a civil rights pilgrimage with Mr. Lewis. And I'll be honest with you, on some of the toughest days in Congress, I will occasionally lean over to one of my colleagues and say, at least we get to work with John Lewis. And in the weeks since his passing, we've heard calls from around the country to start naming things after him, including quite possibly the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where he was beaten and tear gassed decades ago simply for advocating for his right to vote. And I agree, we can and we should, as a nation, honor brave men and women like John Lewis. But I guess in the remarks in the few minutes that I have with you tonight, the main message I want to extend is, if we want to truly honor John Lewis, we need to actually cross some bridges as a country. You want to honor John Lewis and civil rights leaders like him. Let's restore voting rights and remove the barriers to the ballot box that still exist in this country. The elections, the primaries that we saw in Georgia and Wisconsin and Kentucky and other states during the pandemic have been disasters. The disenfranchisement that cost Stacey Abrams the governorship of Georgia was a disgrace. The actions just last week to remove ballot drop boxes in the state of Texas are an offense to all that we know is good and right. And I am proud that we as Democrats, particularly in the U.S. House, have passed a new Voting Rights Act, as well as legislation to protect the Postal Service. You want to honor John Lewis, let's address systemic racism and drive reforms in policing. The House actually passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to take real steps toward that goal, towards reforming training standards and preventing the excessive use of force and racial bias and stopping the militarization of law enforcement so protesters don't face war zone conditions. You want to honor John Lewis? Let's address pay inequities. When an African-American woman gets paid 66 cents on the dollar as a white man, that is wrong. And we should, as the House has done, pass the Paycheck Fairness Act and ensure a pretty simple principle: equal pay for equal work. Or how about we increase the federal minimum wage and help lift 1.3 million Americans out of poverty? Or we make it easier to form a union and expand union membership by passing the PRO Act, which the House has done. If you want to honor John Lewis's legacy, let's make sure America is a country that values its diversity and welcomes immigrants like my mom. Let's reject Donald Trump's policies that separate immigrant children from their parents and that require law-abiding families and dreamers to live in fear of deportation. Folks, we are not yet that more perfect union envisioned by our founders and fought for by Dr. King and Congressman Lewis and so many other leaders. But we can build that more perfect union. And we can build a new normal following this pandemic that addresses many of the problems and inequities our nation had before anyone had even heard of COVID. Making sure people have affordable health care, making sure people have affordable housing, making sure people have economic opportunity. That's what's on the ballot this year. Those goals, those values, that's what we are about as Democrats. And my friends, there are 24 days until Election Day. And by working together, we can make Donald Trump a one-term president. But even more than that, we can elect Democrats up and down the ballot in every race, in every place, including right here in Grays Harbor County. We can keep the amazing dream team we have in the 24th district that is doing an amazing job for you. We are lucky to have two terrific champions for rural Washington representing the 19th district. And we need to re-elect them. Dean Tacko and Brian Blake need your help. We should elect Jamie Nichols to the county commission. We need to elect some of our statewide candidates like Mike, who you just heard, and Denny Heck, who you'll hear soon, and our governor. Listen, Dr. King once said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But the bending of that arc doesn't happen on its own. It happens when people work to bend it toward justice. And that's a call to action for every person participating tonight. My encouragement to you over these next 24 days is every minute that you have that you want to hand wring or be stressed, use those hands to make phone calls for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. On my team, we have a simple motto. We say, don't agonize, organize. Let's not forget what's on the ballot this year. Let's keep doing that hard work for justice. We have 24 days. So my encouragement to you is let's keep cooking. Thanks, everybody.
Great. And Derek, if you wouldn't mind just staying right there, and I'm going to bring Congressman Denny Heck, who's running for Lieutenant Governor in. Let him make some introductory remarks. And then I'd like to talk to both of you sort of in general about what's going on in Washington State and what's going on in Washington, D.C. So our candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Congressman Denny Heck.
It's always hard to follow my roommate, Derek Kilmer, at events like this because he is so profoundly articulate and intelligent and passionate about these values that we all share. I just want you to know, however, that notwithstanding anything else that may be said from here on out, I am the neat roommate in Washington, D.C. That is an established fact, and it really isn't subject to rebuttal on his part at all. As he suggested, 24 days to go. I'd like to start by making an apology. In fact, I feel as though I've been on a bit of an apology tour this whole campaign. I'm apologizing to absolutely everybody that I would have ever in past elections said something like the following: this is the most important election of our lifetime. Because clearly that's not the case then. Clearly it is the case now. I think Vice President Biden is not engaging in campaign rhetoric, is not engaging in hyperbole when he suggests that this is a battle for the soul of America. Indeed it is. The green shoots of authoritarianism out of this administration are now in full bloom by a man who is manifestly unfit to occupy the White House. And we simply cannot allow it to go beyond January 20th of next year. We need to beat him and beat him decisively. Irrespective of that margin, he's going to break a lot of dishes between November 3rd and January 20th. But our hand will be strengthened if we are able to beat him as decisively as possible. And yes, he's going to win Washington State, but that doesn't mean that we can't participate in one of those adopt a state programs and make our phone calls to other states, one of those 6 battleground states, to help lift his margin up there. And I hope you will. And I hope you will as well reelect that incredible team from the 24th, and also Brian and also Dean from the 19th. It is critically important that those voices continue in Olympia in the upcoming legislative session. And we have great opportunities at the state level to take back the treasurer's office. I think you already heard from my friend Mike Pellicciati. Now we're bonded, let me tell you. We're 2 of the biggest Gonzaga basketball fans on the face of the earth. I know for a fact, therefore, what a great treasurer he'll be. We lost that seat last time, frankly, because we formed a circular firing squad and gave it up for the first time in 50 or 60 years. We need to get it back. We also have an opportunity for the first time in decades to elect Gail Tarleton, an excellent candidate for Secretary of State. And it is important to remember that which we remind ourselves every election, which is every vote does count. Those of you who have been involved for a while know this full well. If you remember the 2004 gubernatorial election, when the chief executive of this state was decided by just 133 votes, the efforts you make in Grays Harbor County could in fact make the difference in one of these statewide campaigns. Certainly the effort to elect Jamie to the county commission, which I hope beyond hope that you will do. So finally, before we get into visiting, and Derek attempts to rebut the fact that he really is the messier roommate, I do want to tell you in all sincerity how incredibly humbled and honored and grateful I am for your endorsement of my candidacy for lieutenant governor. That it matters a lot, and I'm deeply grateful. We feel good about our race. We have some momentum here. In the primary, we obviously came in first. We won 38 of 39 counties, won by more than 155,000 votes of the next nearest competitor. We have had 108 organizations endorse us, and it's gratifying, but mostly it's humbling, as was your endorsement. And I want you to know I'm very, very grateful. So thank you. T-minus 24 days. We have a lot of hard and important work to do. And I want to thank you for all that you've done thus far and all that I know you will do between now and then. Mr. Chairman.
I made a comment on social media that Denny interviewed me just about 20 years ago when we were both much less gray. He was TVW and I was in the state legislature. He interviewed me as part of his Sine Die show. And so I promised that I would get even. Denny's a pretty tough interview, but I'm not going to ask about some of the tough questions. I just want to know, Denny, you're a budding or maybe an established wedding officiant. How many weddings have you done?
My wife is sitting over here. 21. So it's about 20, Mike.
So that's a little known fact about Denny Heck, ladies and gentlemen. If you need a wedding done, he could be your guy.
Most of them are still married, Mike.
I've done 5, and all are still married. I'm 5 for 5. All of mine are still married.
And you're a wedding officiant as well. See, so there you go. I happened to attend a wedding that Denny did in the State House chambers, which was an exciting event. But let's take a minute while we're together, and because it's a rare opportunity to have two members of Congress that are willing to share with the folks out here in Grays Harbor County. First, Derek, thank you for representing Grays Harbor County, and Denny, thank you for representing the people in the 10th Congressional District. And both of you in your careers have had the opportunity to, in the legislature and in Congress, to represent urban, rural, and suburban voters in the mix that your districts make up. So what is it that makes it so important for a rural county like Grays Harbor County to keep Democrats representing them both in Congress and in the state legislature, and quite frankly, in the lieutenant governor's office? And I don't care which one of you goes first.
I defer to Derek as this is his congressional district, but by way of introduction, I didn't mention him. Derek Kilmer is inarguably, unequivocally, categorically one of the most outstanding members of the United States House of Representatives. That is not subject to argumentation among the 435 members of the U.S. House. He has made a huge impact thus far, and it's huge, and it's a fraction of what he's going to do in the future.
I appreciate that, Denny. Mike, you know what? I got to tell you, you saw in the last few months, I think, what's at stake. Having leaders who are competent and who share our values really matters. And we saw it with regard to the response to COVID and to the ability to pass a COVID relief bill. And I have to tell you, when my office gets a call or an email from someone who's lost their job or lost their business because of this pandemic, we're not sending them a form letter, I'm calling them. And there's just tremendous pain. I talked to a mom a couple weekends ago up in Port Angeles. She said, I've worked my entire life. And she said, up until March. And then she said, I lost my job in March. She said, I used to do the food drive for my employer. And she said, for the first time in my life, I had to go to the food bank to get help. I talked to a small business owner who said, I spent 30 years building my business. I wanted to pass it on to my kids. And he said, I just can't make it. And, this is why Democrats in Congress have stepped up with a response to the pandemic to both crush the virus and to meet the needs of the American people. And what you've seen from Republicans was, Mitch McConnell saying, well, let's just pause. Well, I can tell you that mom's bills and the need to feed her kids didn't take pause. And that small business owner's business obligations didn't pause while Mitch McConnell and a Republican Senate and Donald Trump and his administration chose to do nothing for 5 months, really for 5 months. And then this week, the president said he was going to direct his negotiators to walk away from the negotiating table. Let's be clear. What he was walking away from was families in need and small businesses in Aberdeen and out on the coast and all over the district I represent. He was walking away from healthcare workers and for first responders who are on the front lines of this. He's walking away from workers who are just trying to make ends meet. And listen, there are profound differences between what Democrats and Republicans have proposed. I'll give you a quick example. In the HEROES Act, Democrats proposed $69 billion for nutrition assistance and utilities assistance to help folks just make ends meet because, we believe that you shouldn't go hungry or have your power turned off because it's something that's not your fault. So we proposed in the HEROES Act $69 billion. Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans proposed $250,000 for that purpose for the entire country. That does not even meet the needs of Grays Harbor County. And so, listen, I think what's at stake for rural Washington, for rural America, is a response that actually crushes this pandemic, that helps communities make ends meet, and then an attempt to actually recover our economy in a way that doesn't just focus on big urban areas, but focuses on rural America as well. And I'll give you a couple quick examples, and then I'm sure you want to hear from Denny too. We as House Democrats actually passed a bill to make substantial investments in rural broadband. We've seen over the course of this pandemic that access to the internet is not just about whether you can watch Cobra Kai on Netflix. It's about, whether your kids can keep learning if school got moved to virtual, or whether you can keep operating your business if your storefront got shut down. We've seen no such proposal from the White House or from Senate Republicans. But we as House Democrats are fighting for that because we believe that our economic recovery cannot afford to leave any communities or any Americans behind. So that's what's at stake in this election. Donald Trump said 4 years ago in an African-American church in Michigan, he said, "What have you got to lose?" And I think a lot of counties, including Grays Harbor County, decided to roll the dice on him. And over the last 4 years, he has shown us on a daily basis what we have to lose. We have health care to lose, with the Affordable Care Act being litigated right now in the U.S. Supreme Court. We have respect for the Constitution to lose. We have our alliances with the rest of the world to lose. We have ethics and civility to lose. That's what's on the ballot in 24 days, and why every Democrat needs to spend the next 24 days working to make sure we have a good outcome on Election Day.
As always, I'm tempted to say what he said because that was eloquent, even by Derek Kilmer standards.
Well,
let me add just a brief pragmatic consideration. The Washington State Legislature, both the House and the Senate, are going to be controlled by Democrats next January, and everybody knows it. Just as pure practical matter, it will benefit rural communities, including Grays Harbor, to have representatives who are in the majority caucuses of the House and the Senate, above and beyond all of the really important reasons that Derek set forth that go to the heart of our values as Democrats.
And that's a great segue to a follow-up, Denny. Derek mentioned rural broadband, and him and I have talked a lot about that. And I know, and I think Representative Mike Chapman will be here in a while, and it's something that he spent a lot of time along with Steve Theringer on as well. But historically, Denny, lieutenant governors have used their bully pulpit for an issue, and many times it's economic development related. And out here in Grays Harbor, where now we've lost a large opportunity in Hoquiam, $400 million opportunity when the potash plant folks decided to go somewhere else besides Hoquiam. And here we are, double-digit unemployment, struggling to find industries that are interested in Grays Harbor. And one of the issues that oftentimes gets in the way is infrastructure, and broadband is one of those things, our rail and our highway infrastructure. How would you be able to use your bully pulpit as lieutenant governor to try to encourage the Senate to move forward on some rural infrastructure related issues to help communities like Grays Harbor County?
Well, you're right. Probably the most important influence or power that a lieutenant governor has is soft power, that is to say influence, gravitas, bully pulpit. But in this regard, they actually have another one. And that is, by law, the lieutenant governor chairs the bicameral bipartisan Legislative Committee on Economic Development and International Relations. And it's a perfect opportunity, especially in the midst, unfortunately, of a painful recession, to advance ideas that are going to move our entire state forward, help our economy to function even better, to grow in a way that more broadly shares prosperity. And there is absolutely zero doubt that expanding, extending, and getting broadband into every nook and cranny in this state ought to be at the top of that agenda. There is no doubt in my mind. As a matter of fact, if we get to the other side of this, in all our deliberations about increased investments in infrastructure, and we fail to do that, we're guilty of malfeasance and misfeasance. We cannot let this opportunity waste. That now that we know we have to make increased investments in infrastructure to help put people back to work and to help create a platform for the economy to function even better than it does now.
Okay, thank you. And I know both of you, I want to be respectful of your time, and I know at least I think Derek might have to take off in a few minents.
I'm going to jump in because I just have to comment on something on this, Mike, before we go. So, like, I've been watching this and just blown away with just, the intellect that we have and that kind of thing. And I'm looking and I see Congressman Kilmer's Boba Fett helmet. I'm like, oh, that's just so great. That's so great. And, Congressman Heck, being the neater one, can't like, oh, I'll just leave an Emmy here in the corner just to kind of balance that out, So I just had to point that out. So I see the little bit of a contrast. So
you also need to know, Stephen, that in our apartment in Washington, D.C., on the half that is his, it is completely replete with Star Wars decorations. And in fact, I'm a little bit culpable. I should say my wife, Paul, is a little culpable. She even made him a curtain to the doorway of the hall that leads to his bedroom that is a Star Wars theme. But if you go into his bedroom, if you can get past the fact that in 8 years he's never made his bed once, there's Star Wars memorabilia everywhere.
Nice.
Now I heard Derek's corner of the apartment is cleaner than yours, though. Is that true?
Yeah, the only person that would say something like that would be Donald Trump.
Well, listen, and speaking of Donald Trump, quick segue then. A lot of people are concerned, and probably more certainly in Washington, D.C. than Washington State, but folks are concerned about, this election, and regardless of the outcome, what kind of behavior we might see on the streets. And certainly some of that we're seeing in Michigan, and Governor Inslee commented on, the potential for some of that behavior to happen in Washington State. Either one of you want to share any thoughts on how we sort of get through that as time marches on and sort of get back to a more civil society, both outside and inside the halls of Congress and the state legislature?
Number one, we win as big as possible so that there can be no confusion or gray area in the period of time between November 3rd and January 20th. Number two, we also all have to get into our heads that our effort to move America forward and to restore its civic health does not end if we just win on November 3rd. We're all going to have a lot of work to do. And again, not just in that period of time until Vice President Biden, God willing, is sworn in as the next president of the United States. And lastly, I'll just say this. When I was first elected to Congress, I invited everybody to hold me accountable to a standard of behavior on two dimensions. The first of which is, despite disagreements I may have with people, I would not demonize them personally. I would not dehumanize them. I would not suggest that they are lesser, but that I would keep my arguments to the policy. And I invited people to hold me accountable for that. I also invited them to hold me accountable for always seeking common ground, places where we could get to principled compromises of a win-win nature that would move the nation forward and bring us together more. Civic discourse in this nation is degraded considerably, and it puts us all at risk because it renders our institutions less able to reach agreement and to solve problems, and they must be solved. Climate change must be solved. This economy must be restored. There must be more broadly shared prosperity. We must do something to protect our environment through more sustainable practices. And the list goes on and on and on.
I'll just say quickly, Mike, the last two things you asked about should make every voter really excited about Denny Heck serving as lieutenant governor. You know, there is no one who has modeled civility better than Denny, not just in Congress, but throughout his career in public service. And your question about economic recovery, I'm really excited about having someone lead the state's economic development efforts who not only has experience doing it in the public arena, but has actually built a business and has been engaged in the private sector. And I think he's going to be just a terrific lieutenant governor. I'm really grateful to the Grays Harbor Democrats for endorsing him. And I want to just encourage people to vote all the way up and down your ballot and be sure to mark Denny's name.
Thank you, Derek.
Well, and thank you both for coming on and helping us tonight, and for your support of the candidates out here and your generosity in helping Grays Harbor Democrats move forward so that we can better help our candidates. And I'm looking forward to re-electing Derek Kilmer to Congress and electing Denny Heck as Lieutenant Governor. I've known Derek for a little while. I've known Denny for a little while longer. And our governor, who used to be my congressman before he was governor. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to have a leadership team both in Washington, D.C. And in Olympia, and hopefully elect a new state treasurer, a new secretary of state, and put that team back the way it should be down over on the Capitol in Olympia, and looking forward to the possibility of you getting another new colleague in Southwest Washington, Derek. And so good luck in both of your campaigns. And we sent a stack of yard signs, Denny, out along with some of Derek's yard signs out to Quinault today. They came by our office and picked up a large stack of yard signs to put out on the tribal land because they're supporting both of you for your election. So looking forward to seeing you both elected. And again, thank you for being here.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Be sure to help Blake and Taco, everybody.
Thank you, Mike, very much. Thank you all.
We're going to have him hopefully here soon. So thank you both. Stephen, who do we have?
Yeah, hold on. let me let them get out. So I think we can maybe take a couple videos really quick, and then we can talk with our representatives from the 24th Legislative District.
Okay, so let's go ahead and if the Hillary Franz video is ready, let's go ahead and show that.
I don't have that queued up, but I do have some.
Well, whatever you have queued up.
I've got a few queued up. Let's talk about our governor first.
Okay.
I ran for governor to help working Washingtonians, not just in good times, but also in tough times like now. We've accomplished a lot together. We secured health coverage for nearly 800,000 Washingtonians, raised salaries for educators, and partnered with business to provide apprenticeships for students. We're developing a clean energy economy with thousands of good-paying jobs, created the nation's best paid family medical leave, and the first long-term care benefit for our seniors. But we all know COVID-19 is hitting us hard. We had the first cases. We've endured heartache and uncertainty. I know a lot has been asked of you. We are turning the tide because Washingtonians are helping each other to protect our health, to rebuild our economy. I see strength and resilience from the people of Washington every day. We will get through this together.
Jay Inslee for governor. The time for proven progressive leadership is now.
Denny Heck, the Democrat for lieutenant governor who's taken Trump on.
The truth is, there is a mountain of evidence Donald Trump is manifestly unfit to be president of the United States.
Denny Heck, a respected champion of fairness and justice.
And a job creator, uniquely prepared to help restore our economy. Proven progressive leadership.
That's Democrat Denny Heck.
Paid for by Heck for lieutenant governor, Democrat.
Kilmer, Franz, Heck, and Nichols are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to re-elect Congressman Derek Kilmer and Lands Commissioner Hillary Franz. Elect Denny Heck, Lieutenant Governor, and Jamie Nichols, County Commissioner, because they put people and public safety first before politics.
When Joe Biden wants an update on the virus, he calls on the nation's top health experts. Working together for all Americans is what Joe does. When writing his healthcare plan, Joe Biden worked with both doctors and patients to make healthcare affordable by lowering premiums, reducing drug costs, and protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Joe listened to both small business owners and workers to create his economic plan that cuts taxes for middle-class families, creates 18 million new jobs in his first term, and raises wages by as much as $15,000 a year. Joe Biden's plans will help working families immediately by making the super rich finally pay their fair share. For Joe, it's never been about ego. It's always been about the work he can do for working families. It's what he's always done. Joe Biden brings everyone to the table and gets it done.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Vandewey, Theringer, Chapman, and Nichols are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to re-elect Senator Kevin Vandewey, State Representatives Steve Theringer and Mike Chapman, and elect Jamie Nichols, County Commissioner, because they put people and public safety first before politics. Paid for by Grays Harbor County Democrats, P.O. Box 1423, Aberdeen, Washington.
Well, that was an exciting interview with Congressman Heck and Congressman Kilmer. Denny Heck, our candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Derek Kilmer running for re-election. Before we go to our next candidates, just want to remind you that you can go to our website, ghdemocrats.org, and make a contribution to the Democratic Party. Excuse me, I just ran across the room. And $20.20 gets you your membership for 2021, and it also gets you a demo burger meal when we reopen the burger booth finally, hopefully next spring, for your opportunities. So once again, $20.20, go right to the website, click donate. It'll take you to the donate page, and you'll be able to make that contribution by credit card. I think what we're going to do right now is go to our folks in the 24th legislative district, and first person we're going to bring on, because Senator Vandewey, as you know, is a firefighter, and he's on duty tonight, but he has sent a surrogate here to talk to us. So I believe we have Allison with us, and just talk a little bit about Kevin's campaign and what folks can do to help him get reelected. Allison.
Yeah, hi, I'm Allison. Senator Van Duyck is my dad, and as you mentioned, he's currently working a 48 shift at the Sequim Fire Department. He wishes he could be here for this online event, but is unfortunately tied up with that. So you're gonna have to have me instead. The campaign is going really well. We love the 24th Legislative District. We love Grays Harbor. And we are really trying to push some effort here. If you'd like to donate, you can go to kevinvandewegg.com. But if you would like to volunteer in other ways, you can email me, allisonvandewegg@gmail.com, and I can get you set up with phone banking or yard signs or really anything that you would like to do to help out. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you all for being here.
Well, thank you for stopping by, and thanks. Please pass along to your dad, Senator Van Duyck, my friend. Thank him for his service not only in the state Senate but as a firefighter protecting those folks up in Clallam County. So thank you for stopping by, Allison.
I will. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I think we're going to go to the House members from the 24th District. And I'm not sure who. Okay, we have both Representative Chapman and Theringer here. So going to let, I don't know whether to go by who's most senior or who has the most seniority, but we'll start with Representative Steve Theringer, give you a couple minutes to introduce yourself, and then Representative Chapman, and then we'll have a little exchange between the two of you after you introduce yourselves. So Steve Theringer.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Stephen, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, Grays Harbor Democrats. It's great to be with you tonight. It's great to be your representative, for some of you anyway, there in the harbor. I just want to highlight, when Democrats are in charge, life is better in this country. I mean, if you look at the data nationally, when there's Democratic presidents, GDP goes up, jobs are increased, and the debt goes down. We passed the Affordable Care Act. We did Medicare. We did Medicaid. When Democrats are in charge, things are better. In the state legislature, we struggled when I first got in the legislature 10 years ago because we had a Republican Senate. Once we got a majority in the Senate, we ended up solving the McCleary problem, funding schools. We passed long-term care. We've created a vision for providing behavioral health services throughout the state. Things just are better when Democrats are in charge. I mean, the data is very, very clear. We have a big party, and in, a little civics lesson, when we have, in the US, we have a two-party system. So it's not parliamentary, right? So there aren't all these factions. We have to reconcile those different interests within our parties, and the Democrats just do that better. We have a big tent, we have a lot of different voices, and we end up, I think, developing better policy because of that. So in Grays Harbor, electing Jamie Nichols will help you, and working with Randy Ross, you will get better government in Grays Harbor. You will have a better county government because the data is just there, it's clear. And so in the, working with Kevin and Mike, I think there's some delegations, some districts where the senator doesn't talk to the House member, the House members don't like each other, the House members don't like the senator, but the three of us work well together. We sort of divvy up the issues. I do a lot in capital budget and healthcare. Mike does a lot in transportation and natural resources. Kevin, of course, is chair of the Natural Resource Committee in the Senate. So we divvy things up and coordinate our effort, which, seems like common sense, but there's a lot of delegations that don't do that. And working with Jamie and Randy and with the Grays Harbor, commissioners, and then working with Derek, who we heard earlier, who does such a great job for us, in a very challenging district. And then, of course, working with the governor and with the different Hillary Franz and a number of good Democrats, we can get things done as a team. So I really appreciate being your representative and appreciate working for you. And hopefully with your vote, I'll be able to continue doing that for another couple of years.
Mike Chapman, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
It's great to be here. It was great to listen in to Denny Heck and Derek Kilmer, and what a great, great part of the team. This year, Steve and I this week had a chance to debate our opponents on KXRO. I don't know if folks were able to see that at all, but what struck me is as Steve and I talk about some of the great projects and the great benefits that we brought into Grays Harbor, in both of those cases, our opponents not only dismiss that, but were somewhat condescending that we weren't working hard for Grays Harbor. And I thought that, isn't that kind of the way right now? I mean, we as Democrats, I mean, we have a great track record of helping Grays Harbor. I mean, including, we increased the Medicaid reimbursement for Grays Harbor Community Hospital. We got $3 million for a new coastal community action office. $2.5 million for the Aberdeen North Shore levee, $425,000 for the Lower Satsop River restoration, $2.5 million for Westport dredging for jobs, $155,000 for power capacity development at Sassop Industrial Park, again for job growth. How about we got $5.7 million to build a new student services building at Grays Harbor College, $250,000 for improvements to the historic Hoquiam Library, $800,000 for a new learning center and child care center in Elma, which will be a huge benefit to the East County, and $293,000 for the new roof for the YMCA. So Steve and I both kind of highlighted all the work that, plus, access to college now for Grays Harbor students, long-term care, paid family medical leave. As we talk about that in good government from Democrats, I mean, we really were dismissed, and I thought the community was dismissed by our opponents. And it's just nice to be part of a team that actually wants to deliver, bring back for every dollar of taxes that Grays Harbor pays in, we bring back $1.30 or $1.40. And also, it's not just about taxes. No one wants to pay more taxes. And honestly, we've tried to work so that some of the largest increases have really hit the I-5 corridor. The opportunity for free community college for families making less than $50,000. The vast majority of that money will come out of the I-5 corridor. The vast benefit will be in rural communities like Grays Harbor, because our median wage for a family of four is like $36,000. When you talk about that, it's interesting that our friends on the other side of the aisle, they hate Seattle, and they say, oh my God, we can't let, we don't want those Democrats representing Seattle values. And yet when they had an opportunity to tax Seattle that they hate and give a benefit to their district, there wasn't one Republican, not one Republican voted to give community college access to rural students at the expense of Seattle that they hate. So I often wonder, like, what is it? What do they want? Do they just want to kind of have this boogeyman out there that Seattle's so awful? It was interesting. It was Brian. At the time, it was Brian, me, Steve, Kevin, Dean, just a handful of rural legislators voting for a benefit that the vast majority of the money came out of the Seattle I-5 corridor, and the vast benefit goes to the rural community. So, I'm proud to be working with Kevin and Steve. Quite frankly, we probably all three of us should hire Allison to give our speeches for us, because probably the more we talk, the less votes we get, and the more she talks, the more votes Kevin will get. But it is an honor. Like Steve said, we're a delegation. I've had representatives on the floor ask me, would you go talk to my senator about a bill that I'm working on, or a bill we're trying to, and I'm like, go talk to your own senator. And they're like, oh no, we don't talk anymore, even in the same party. So one thing Steve, Kevin, and I do is we meet during session. And I don't know how to work this year, but generally we've met every couple of weeks during session, after hours in Kevin's office. And the first question we ask is, all right, what are the bills? What are we working on? What do we need to do for our district? We don't really talk about just the big policy bills for the state. We're like, what capital budget requests, what transportation requests, who's working on what, who's going to make sure that project stays in the budget. And I think that has paid value. And if you go, just looking at down the list, but then also just value of working together. So I know Steve's here. I don't know if we can take questions, but it's just an honor to represent. We're going to work hard. We're all spending a little bit more money in the Grays Harbor community this election cycle. We think that it's, number one, our numbers were not good in the primary, but number two, we're trying to help Dean and Brian, indirectly Jamie and Randy. You know, if we've made a mistake as Democrats, you guys, I'll just say this, throw it out there, and then we'll see if anybody agrees or disagrees. If we made a mistake the last 4 years, so we let a 6'6" buffoon wander around our community, bellowing at the top of his lungs, spewing nonsense, and we really didn't push back hard enough. And in essence, he's painted all of us now as, again, you know, Seattle. If I hear that I represent Seattle values one more time, and now when he endorsed my opponent, not only do I represent Olympia and Seattle values, I also represent New York values. I don't know how the hell that got into the conversation. I've never been to New York. So going forward, we've got to hold that guy accountable, because there is some damning stuff in some things he's done. But all of us need to work hard to just kind of say, hey, we're Democrats, we're for good government, and it's an honor to represent you. But oh, and by the way, Jim's from Massachusetts, Florida, and freaking Los Angeles before he washed up on our shores. And 4 years ago, he had the gall to criticize Teresa Purcell because she had a 206 number. Well, if he had lived in the state his whole life like I had, he would have remembered that 206 was once the entire area code of Western Washington, and they had to shrink it down to give us a second area code. Michael, remember this, about 1990. So here a guy was from Los Angeles criticizing Teresa because she'd had a number long enough that it was a part of the 206 area code, which was once the entire area code for Western Washington. See, that's the nonsense that we let him get away with. It just pisses me off. Plus, it pisses me off when he comes into Steve's in my district and has anti-mask rallies in our community, bellowing at the top of his lungs. Anyway, Jim and I don't have a good relationship, nor do we ever plan to.
Well, people forget that you can take your phone number anywhere. I live in Elma, and I still have a 425 phone number because I brought it with me. So let's say it's hard to top Mike Chapman now. I can't think of any questions to ask.
So I have a question just to clarify.
Go ahead, and then I'll get my composure.
As you know, being painted with Seattle values, I share one Seattle value with you. I love the old school throwback Seahawk.
Exactly.
We were never going to have Largent and Russell Wilson together, but we got to remember our history and stuff like that. So, I will continue when they say Seattle values. I say, yeah, I love my Hawks. I always will. So yeah.
What about the Storm, Steve? What about the Storm?
Four-time WNBA. Oh man,
I mean,
that is a legacy. Yeah. Yeah, well, we're pretty lucky in the Northwest to have some great sporting legacies. We had a few good years with the Mariners. They'll be back, and
really?
at some point, and the Sonics will come back at some point, and the Kraken. So I mean, we got some Seattle.
The Kraken. Now we're talking.
Yeah, we'll have to. I'm like, if we're going to have hockey, does that mean we're getting Tim Hortons too? I'm really excited about that. But, I'll have to come up to Port Angeles and take a ferry across to go. Maybe.
Yeah, right.
But
before we go to our next question, I should just say the winningest sports franchise in Seattle, and congratulations to the Seattle Storm. 4 championships. No other Seattle team has won 4 championships.
I mean, I watched that final. They were unbelievable.
They're on fire.
Yeah, the way they moved the ball around, everybody was firing, and 3-pointers and inside. Pretty impressive team, actually. Yeah. Exciting.
Well, both of you have mentioned some pretty important things, and you heard both Derek and Denny talk about economic development out here in Grays Harbor County, and thank you both for the work that you've done. And Mike, you and I talked a little bit about the rail siding out in Elma that I know the federal government and the state government put some money into. But, you know, given the shortfall both in the general fund and now the transportation budget, what do you see going on, and how are we going to hang on to opportunities out here to develop our infrastructure, not only our rural broadband, but also our transportation infrastructure out here in this rural area? Because I think those really are part of the keys to economic development out here in Grays Harbor. Either one of you can talk first.
Well, first, I mean, you know, we're kind of preaching to the choir tonight. I'll just go quick and then let Steve fill in the details. First, you got to keep Steve. He's the chair of the capital budget. And Mike, you know, people say, and it was, again, if people listened the other night, his opponent was completely dismissive, as if his opponent wins, somehow he'll be the capital budget chair. You know, the 24th probably never had the capital budget chair. And the reality is we may never. So we've got to prop up Steve like it's Weekend at Bernie's or something, because we got to, but the chair of the capital budget. And the other thing is, my opponent the other night, she not only wants to cut the operating budget, she wants to cut the transportation budget. And then she said she wanted to cut, if not eliminate, the capital budget. And the capital budget funds schools, and Steve can talk about all these projects that are good for the community. So I think number one, you know, we have to have people in office who actually want a government to work. So Steve, I know, and you know, I know you have a good bipartisan team there, but you work, the capital budget is so important to all of this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Denny Hick touched on this a little bit. You know, the fact that I'm capital budget chair is because the Democrats are in the majority, right? And that makes a difference. And votes matter, elections matter, and having that majority, you know, brings power to you know, to Democrats. And you could vote for, you know, our opponents, Mike and my opponents, or Dean or Brian's opponent, and they'll be just screaming in the hallway because they will not have a voice in the room where the decisions are made. And so if you know, they try to put this wedge between us as far as rural and urban, which in fact doesn't, I mean, there's some issues, right? But in generally, as Mike Chapman talked about, we actually, because we're the majority party, we work for, you know, One Washington, and we integrate those issues within the party and then within our majorities. If you vote for somebody who's, you know, an ideological orthodoxy bumper sticker politician, you're not going to have a voice that's going to be effective for you in impacting, you know, your life. I mean, if you want to just be totally libertarian and, you know, which is kind of an academic exercise in selfishness, that's one thing. But if you want to really actually generate, you know, government efforts that are going to improve your life, you want to have a voice in the room with the majority caucus. And, you know, I know folks get that, but and Denny sort of talked about that, but that's important. So Mike Cooper, you brought up, and you talked a little bit with Denny Heck about broadband, and that's a huge issue. That's happens in the capital budget, right? We've put about 35 million the last 3 years into broadband. The state's need is about 4 billion, but we're going to have to integrate with we'll be doing more within the capital budget. And within this cycle, as you alluded to, the operating budget's challenge is not as bad as it was because the revenue forecast filled up half of their hole. Transportation budget is a huge challenge. Operating budget, because it's based on a 6-year sort of formula, we're going to be in good shape. So we'll be able to make some more investments in broadband and try to look at the key will be to look at areas that aren't getting that service so we can improve that service. I don't know what that number is going to be. You know, it's been around 35 million like I said, for the last 3 years. So I'm hopefully it'll be as robust as that, if not more. But the capital budget is where we can use investments to stimulate the economy a little bit and help create jobs, you know, in the short term as we do the projects, but make investments like broadband that will create economic activity in the future. So I'm glad to be able to be that chair and have a strong voice. I mean, actually, nothing goes into that budget that I don't approve as chair. I mean, it's just the way it works. I have to sign off on it. So that's an important place to be. That's really helpful for Grays Harbor and for the peninsula.
You know, the other thing you folks need to remember, not only we're lucky. So you have Steve's capital budget chair. Brian chairs the Ag and Natural Resources Committee. And I talked about that the other night, how important for the timber industry to have the chair that oversees the policy arm of logging and shellfish and agriculture. Kevin chairs the same committee basically in the Senate. He includes parks. So state parks is under his purview. Dean works with local government. He chairs local government. I mean, you have six representatives, 2 senators, 4 reps. You have 4 chairs of major committees. I'm not a chair right now, but I actually, get to work on some other good things. And I'm just too young in the legislature to be a chair. But I hope the community in Grays Harbor realizes not to be so cavalier that, if we lose these chairs, we don't necessarily get them back on the peninsula. And so they're so important. I just want folks to remember, Brian a lot of times we don't want to tout our own importance, and we're, none of us are so important we can't be ever replaced, but I don't want to be replaced by Republicans who won't be in the majority, won't be chairing anything, and then the district suffers even more.
Yeah, and the voters need to be reminded of that. 1994, the people in Spokane voted the Speaker of the House of Representatives out of office, and they thought that the Republican that they voted in was going to become the Speaker. And so people don't, sometimes relate to the information where it is the majority party that has the chairs, has the Speaker, and sets the agenda. So I want to thank both of you for coming on and spending time with us. I think our 19th district people are almost, some of them, ready to go. So thank you again, both of you, for spending some time here. And thank you for what you are doing. I know both of you are very responsive. In my other life, I know Mike in particular and Steve have spent some time visiting with elected officials down in Elma and trying to find out what our needs are down there. So thank you, and looking forward to re-electing both of you to the House of Representatives. And hopefully things will open up with COVID-19 and people will actually be able to go visit you in the Capitol when session starts. So thank you for coming. I totally agree.
Yeah, I really hope so. I can't imagine doing a session remotely, which is what we're talking about. I
don't even know what that looks like.
I don't know how I develop a capital budget,
which is interesting, but
yeah, I don't know how I develop a capital budget on a Zoom call. It's just not gonna work. Hey, Mike, thanks for you guys for putting this together, and for emceeing this, and for everybody. Steve, for being the guy in the background there. Stephen, for being in the background.
He's the guy doing all the work, actually.
Hey, thanks, Grays Harbor Democrats. I think it was June, May. Early endorsements. Steve, Kevin, and I. But you got behind Derek Kilmer, Dean, Brian. Man, I'm telling you, it was the first party endorsements that we all got, and I can't tell you, both Denny, Derek, Steve, Kevin, and I, we've talked about it. I'm telling you, we that meant everything this year to have that first party endorsement. It just snowballs from there, took us into the primary. I know our numbers weren't as good politically, in the primary. They're going to be better in the general, but that to know the parties behind us, let me tell you, don't ever think an endorsement from the party it means everything. And I think Steve and I were on the call. And you're sitting there. We've sat through 4 of those now: Clallam, Jefferson, Grays Harbor, and the 24th. You're sitting there and you're like nervous. It feels really good to get the support of your party. Means everything. And I know Derek feels the same way.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the time and energy you put in the legislature on behalf of us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, guys. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a video ready to play or something?
I do, as soon as I remember what I'm clicking. So yeah, we'll have a video. Just 1 second.
While Stephen's trying to set up the video, just want to remind you, you can go to ghdemocrats.org. make a donation to the Democratic Party so we can help with the great get out the vote effort we got going on right now on behalf of all these candidates. That's ghdemocrats.org. $20.20 gets you your dues for next year and a coupon for a demo burger meal. Now, if you give enough money, there's a rumor that we might have some fly swatters to give away later on. But, that's going to take a pretty large contribution for you to get a fly swatter. So let's cue up a video, and then we're going to find some candidates from the 19th district.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape on there. What I'd like to do is actually, once again, just run through who our endorsed candidates are. All right, so we're back, Mike.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share. So we've had a lot of great candidates. We've had a couple of congressmen on. So Canada, our Derek Kilmer. We've had Denny Heck, who's running for lieutenant governor. We had Mike Pellegiotti, who's running for state treasurer. And there's something that's just been glaringly absent. Yes, we had Jamie on, but she doesn't like to spend a whole lot of time on camera. We're going to make her come back on anyway. But I want to talk to one of the ladies that's just going to really do a fantastic job in Washington State. So I would really like to, we have a very, very important race in the 19th legislative district. Can we go ahead and bring in Mariana Everson to join us now?
Yeah, and that's great. Thank you. And hi, Mariana. And before we let Mariana speak, I want to just make a couple comments. Made it through a very tough primary, two great candidates, and Mariana prevailed in the Democratic primary and moved forward to face a gentleman who, quite frankly, I don't think represents the values of Grays Harbor County, or quite frankly, of certainly the people of the state of Washington. He spends a lot of time blustering and spouting what Governor Inslee referred to as the Trumpian language, and a lot of criticism, no solutions, and is now famous for his COVID super spreader events that he's holding around the 19th district. 32% or less voting record with organized labor, dismal voting record for the working people of Washington State. And Mariana has an opportunity to unseat him, backed by many labor unions and and has been working exceedingly hard to try to unseat probably the least friendly state representative for working people right now in the state of Washington. So I want to give her a chance to introduce herself, and then maybe we can chat and talk about a few issues that will be facing you in Olympia when session starts. So Mariana Everson.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is great to be with my hometown Grays Harbor Democrats. I am the state committee member for Grays Harbor. I have my little sweatshirt going on here, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about our district, about what we go through, what we have been going through, and I just wanted to reiterate what Mike said. Like, this person that's in our seat right now, our seat, the people's seat, is his entire job is to make us afraid of each other and divide us and keep us from realizing what the real problems are, what our real solutions can be. And I'm really proud to be running as a mom and a nurse and a wife of a veteran, to be running in this time. As a nurse, it is very important for us to come together right now. We are in the worst situation that we have ever seen in our lifetimes. A pandemic, an economic crisis, all in one. And I'm really proud to be in this position to take this guy out. He has created an environment where people think that it's okay to not take care of each other. Like, the bare minimum of taking care of each other during a pandemic is to wear a mask, and this guy is not wearing a mask, and he's encouraging others to not as well. And like Mike said, he's having these public events. It makes me angry. It makes me so angry to know that there's somebody out there that's putting people in danger and inviting others to do the same. It's not okay. But the working people of LD19 they know what they need. We need health care. We need to take care of each other. We need to get through a pandemic. We need jobs that pay an adequate wage. Okay. There's plenty of work that needs to be done in this district. There's plenty of things that we lack that we need. We need to take care of our elderly. We need to take care of our forests and make sure we do have some sustainable lumber, timber industry. We know we need more doctors and nurses, and there's all kinds of things that we need, and we can create really good jobs for people right here in the district to stay here, live here, and thrive right here in our district. And I really think that working people know what we need, and that I'm really happy to be part of that working class that has come up through poverty and all the things. I've had all the struggles that you guys have all had. And I'm really happy to be in this position to take this guy out and go to Olympia and represent working families, because we know what we need. We need healthcare. We need affordable housing. We need good paying jobs, and we need to fully fund our schools. And I'm going to go there and fight for those things, because we all know that that's what we need. Thanks. And I need a haircut.
I'm gonna toss a question out here, and then I think Stephen's got a couple questions too. But one of the things that continues to come up, and that I've heard the incumbent talk about, is that we got to cut the budget, get rid of the waste, do all these things, and as you've mentioned and we've all mentioned, he has no solutions. We're faced with a $4 billion shortfall because of the COVID crisis. And your priorities are great priorities. How do you see the legislature? Presumably, we're going to still have a Democratic majority. Right. But what will your priorities be as we're faced with that shortfall, and how would you prioritize working through that shortfall?
Right. A lot of what I hear from Jim and from other sources is that we have to cut this and cut that and furlough these people. And we have an amazing opportunity in Washington State. We have an untapped resource. We have the most regressive tax system in the entire country. People like you and me that are working class and we work every day, we pay more as a percentage of our income to taxes than the two richest men in the world, or at least the country, that live in our state. We have not taxed people with enormous wealth in our state at a rate that is fair. And I think that it is time. It is past time. We've tried to do little bits here and there. Last year, they taxed some people pretty well. Okay, it was a start, but we need to stop funding our state off the backs of working people and start expecting people who are enormously wealthy to pay their fair share. And we can meet our budget demands, and we can do other things like cover everyone with health care and fully fund our schools. And, like if Jeff Bezos paid the same tax rate as my friend Tanya that works at the Dollar Tree, we'd have more than enough money to pay for all the things that people need to survive and thrive in Washington.
Great. Stephen, did you want to jump in with a question?
Yeah. So one of the things that, your opponents, certainly ambitious and has kind of taken on kind of a persona in this state that goes beyond the 19th legislative district.
Sure.
And we know that, as Mike Chapman mentioned earlier, he's not, he's from California and Florida and stuff like that. He actually went to the same prep school as, I realized my mic was off. I was picking up somewhere else. It must be loud enough.
Yeah, he went to the same prep school as Canada. He was in the same sorority.
Yeah, he was a year ahead of Kavanaugh at the same private school, that kind of thing. So he definitely does this thing. He manages to wear a neckerchief, but never actually bring it up over his face, that kind of thing. That's well and good. But what are you going to do when to change the tone of how the 19th legislative district is represented? And honestly, okay, I guess I'm really going off a thing. The past, 4 years, I've seen you come up from
nowhere,
not being politically active at all.
Right, exactly.
To really just being passionately learning about that process and getting involved to taking on somebody that you really felt didn't represent you in this district. How can we get more people like you that feel not represented to run for these positions, stuff like that, and to just take an interest? I mean, certainly there's a need.
Right. So, you know me pretty well, and you know that I've come from an activist orientation to our political problems and organize things. I really feel like we have the opportunity to expand our organizing. So as Democrats, that's what I think we need to be focusing on, like getting people in, bringing them in on the issues, because right now there's so many people that are trying to be out in the community and deciding that they want to be activists, and they with the Black Lives Matter movement and all of the things, people are starting to understand that politics matters in their life. A lot of people were like I was in 2014-15. I was generally a Democrat. I voted for Obama twice. I voted almost every time. But I didn't really pay all that much attention. People are paying attention now. And so I think that it's really important, because we share values with so many people that are out in the streets right now, standing up for Black lives, that we connect with them, that we tell them that we get it. We're here. We've been here we need your energy. We need your help. Will you lead us in some things? Because, we have things that we need to learn from you as well. I think I'm going to get a 5-year-old's arm. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that's great. I can't believe we've gone this far and haven't seen a cat or a dog or any of the goodness. I did hear a couple of kids earlier, and that's okay because we
wander through when we bring Jamie on camera. So
Jamie might bring some
mic.
Yeah.
Mariana, thank you very much. The one thing that strikes me in this race in particular, we've got some great legislators out here, and I've watched the Grays Harbor people over the years, and not since my good friend Lynn Kessler left office. And I don't mean this to be negative to our incumbents, except for the one you're running against in any way, but we've had nothing but white guys representing the 19th and the 24th district, and bringing you into office as a great candidate against a guy that, quite frankly, doesn't respect any kind of diversity is great for our delegation and gives it the diversity we need. 51% of our population in Grays Harbor County is women, and we have no women in the legislature right now. And so having the opportunity to have you there would be a great opportunity. So really quickly, if people want to help your campaign, how do they get a hold of your campaign to volunteer?
Yeah. Our website is mariannaforthepeople.com, MARIANNA, the word for FOR, thepeople.com. Go on there and read about me. You can click to meet with me. I will call you up and we'll have no, not the number 4. The word 4, sorry.
Word 4.
Sorry. I thought you said number 4.
Careful, you know what happened to that guy that's running for governor.
Let's get this right, because we want people going to the right spot. Okay. How about that? Does that work for you?
There we go. Perfect. MariannaForThePeople.com. You can meet with me. You can click to volunteer or donate. All the stuff you can read about my platform, and definitely love to have you. If you'd like to volunteer today, you can be on our call on Monday for our volunteer call, and then you can help us start phone banking right away, or text banking, or we're just almost done. We've written almost 8,000 personal messages on postcards, and we're just wrapping that part up. But phone banking, text banking, and some relational friend-to-friend organizing is still going on. So we'd love to have you join the team. Be great.
Great. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your evening. And speaking of opportunities to donate and volunteer, before we go to our next candidate, which I think is going to be Senator Taco, just a reminder, Grays Harbor, ghdemocrats.org. You can make a $20.20 contribution, and you'll get your dues paid for 2021, as well as get a coupon for a burger meal the next time the demo burger booth opens up. And if you want to volunteer, you can leave us a message on Facebook, and we'll give you volunteer opportunities. We've got lots of sign waving and lid drops coming up, phone banking, all kinds of opportunities to get these great candidates like Mariana and all the other ones we've seen tonight elected. So speaking of that, gentleman from the 19th Legislative District, the longtime Senator, Dean Taco, gonna bring him in, I think now, there he is, and give him a few minutes to talk a little bit about himself and his priorities, and then answer a question or two. Dean.
Okay, try and get myself lined up here so you can see me. Can you hear me okay?
A little closer to the microphone, if you could.
Well, that means I got to get my face closer.
Okay, we're fine. I think we're okay.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Great. How about you? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, well, we did some doorbelling today and canvassing, and the campaign's going fine. We're doing just about everything you're supposed to do: TV, radio, mailings, doorbelling, newspaper ads, you name it, we're doing it.
Great. So a lot coming up this next session, $4 billion shortfall in the general fund, and you're being accused of being, I think they're calling you Taxman Dean or something like that.
Yeah.
But the good news is, on the other side, the firefighters called you one of our great senators for organized labor when they gave their video earlier. I don't know if you saw it, but I just want to kind of check in with you on, and I know you, I think, are on transportation, if I recall. How are we going to approach this? Not only budget shortfall from a revenue downturn, but also this initiative that's got a whole lot of confusion going on about whether or not those funds will be available. How are we going to make sure that the folks in the rural part of the state, in particular Grace Harbor County, get the infrastructure that they deserve?
Yeah, obviously the initiative threw a big monkey wrench into everything. My theory is just let the Supreme Court rule on it. If they rule, that it's valid, okay, we'll step back and we'll try and figure this thing out. Personally, I think there were some real problems with the initiative. I think there was multiple subject problems with it. We also had bonds that were being covered by the car tabs, and you can't take away a funding source when you've dedicated or committed bonds. So we just got to let that thing play out. And it really matters which way it goes. Obviously, if we lose that and we lose the excise tax, it puts us in a big hole. And really, we're in a big hole no matter what. The thing that people don't realize is that with the more efficient cars and trucks that we have, and the more electric cars we have, our tax per mile driven is going down, down, down. And, it's a problem that's going to be, it's a problem now, but it's going to be a bigger problem in the future. I was talking to somebody just recently, yesterday, and they were talking about how, I think it was Douglas PUD with their big dams over there and their excess generating power, they're going to start generating and creating hydrogen. So pretty soon we're going to have hydrogen cars. So as we go to these alternatives, the gas tax isn't going to be viable really to take care of our transportation needs. So we got to take a big look at it. And that's why, I've been criticized and said, I voted for the road mileage tax. No, I didn't vote for a road mileage tax. Nobody voted for a road mileage tax. What we voted on was to do a study of transportation funding, and that was one of the things we looked at. And I think it's irresponsible to not look at all the various options. I'm not a big fan of the road mileage tax. My biggest complaint with it is, there's probably two. One is that in the rural areas, you certainly have to drive more to get the same services that you do if you live in an urban area. If you live in Cathlamet and you need a doctor, you have to drive to Longview. You just can't hop on a city bus and go down the street. The other thing is that it's got a real expensive back office. The gas tax is very easy to collect. It's just X number of pennies per gallon. But when you get into the vehicle miles traveled, there's a big back office that has to keep track of how many miles everybody's driving and figure this whole thing out. So it's certainly not ready for prime time as far as I'm concerned. But like I say, I think it was reasonable and responsible to look at that and other transportation funding mechanisms. But with that said, we do have a big problem, and I'm willing to look at just about anything and everything there is when it comes to transportation funding, because we really need to look at it. I'll give you an example. One of the things that's holding back development in the Grace Harbor area is that incredible congestion that you have down there by the Walmart and that whole area through there. The city and the state have a program or a concept, to put an overpass in there. They were going to lose that money that's been invested in it already if they could not get, I believe, $750,000 to keep the ball moving down the court. And at the very last minute in the session, I went to the Senate and the House transportation chairs, and I gave them a really good argument of why, for $750,000 $100,000, we keep this project going and we don't lose all the several millions that have been put in it up front for all of the EIS and scoping and all of those soft things. So, transportation is important. And if the Grace Harbor area is really going to do well, we've got to stop some of this bottleneck that's down there. Did I ramble on long enough for you?
No, that's great. I really appreciate you stopping by. And Dean, if people, we've got people come in our office in Aberdeen every day asking how we can help and getting yard signs, and they're picking up your yard signs. But if folks want to go out and walk with you or volunteer on your campaign, how do they get a hold of your campaign to help?
Oh, I got a really easy website. It's www.deantaco.com.
Okay.
That's an easy one to remember. And I also have a Facebook page. So, get a hold of me, and we can always use some people. There's lots of things we can put somebody to work doing.
Great. Well, I appreciate you coming on and helping out, and we look forward to helping you as much as we can. And we're going to certainly be encouraging our volunteers to not only get out and help you, but help the other candidates in sign waving and phone banking and lit dropping down the stretch. 24 days to go and a lot of work to do. So thank you, Dean. I'm going to let you get a little bit of rest. You probably have some fundraising calls or something to make still tonight. So
yeah, well,
thanks for coming on. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
I was going to say an observation is, I don't know if Steve Theringer is still watching, but I really enjoyed what he said. I came into the house, and he came in a few years after me, and we sat side by side. And from his answers, I could tell that I trained him well.
Good.
I'm sure. Well,
we are fortunate to have
rolling on the floor.
To have all of you there. Well, thank you.
You bet.
Why don't we? If you got any, if you have that commercial queued up about the 19th legislative district by any chance, Steve? Okay, never mind then.
Taco, Blake, and Nichols are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forest, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to re-elect Senator Dean Taco, State Representative Brian Blake, and elect Jamie Nichols, County Commissioner, because they put people and public safety first before politics. Paid for by Grays Harbor County Democrats, P.O. Box 142.
Thank you. And for those of you that just saw that, we did and before we bring on our next person, Grays Harbor Democrats did a radio buy, and these candidates, we mixed all the candidates up. So if you listen on the radio, you'll hear, we'll play it before we go, another commercial that's got Mariana Everson in it with Governor Inslee, and some from the 24th and so on. So the candidates got kind of mingled in the commercials. And so before we go off tonight, we'll just queue up the commercials and let you hear all four of them, so that you can hear what your donations are helping pay for. And once again, that's ghdemocrats.org. $20.20 gets you not only your dues, but a demo burger. So we're going to bring on now a gentleman who's Grays Harbor's own neighbor and representative from the 19th Legislative District, Brian Blake. Hi, Brian. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. It's been a full day.
I know I saw you out walking the dogs and fishing or something on Facebook today, so good. But I know you did some campaigning too.
Yeah, got a little wet this morning, and the wet weather came in. We knew it was going to be quite a day. And then I traveled down to Ocean Park on the Long Beach Peninsula, working on signs, doorbelling, etc. And then we sign waved on the corner there by Jack's Country Store, and I've never seen such an exciting sign waving event. There were parades of cars and pickups with Democratic flags driving up and down the streets, honking their horns, and it was quite a display. and there's just a lot of excitement out there about this election.
Great. Well, Brian, I have a couple questions here, and feel free to just kind of elaborate as much as you want. But you and I have had this conversation many times, and with the large wildfires we had not only in Washington but Oregon and California this year, and you and Commissioner France and other people have talked about the need to balance forest management with climate change. What are your thoughts? And the commissioner made an interesting point after the governor's debate when she suggested that a lot of candidates from the governor on down are using one-liners about forest fires, wildfires, but she hoped that they were ready to sort of put their money where their mouth was when the legislative sessions start. What do you sort of foresee that the legislature needs to do to deal with forest management, climate change, wildfire response? Because I think they all have to fit together, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I've been pleasantly surprised by this lands commissioner's response to wildfire. I have to say the previous ones that I've worked with just didn't have the gravitas or whatever to deal with the problem, and she has frankly whipped that department into shape, developed relationships. So much of this is about developing relationships, just like the legislative process. This firefighting process is about having relationships with local fire chiefs and fire departments and law enforcement in these rural counties, and having a coordinated response. And the wildfire response in this state has been not as well coordinated as it could have been in the past. And so I'm impressed with what she's done so far. She is right. It is going to cost some extra dollars in investment. Part of that is reducing the ability of wildfire to spread across the landscape. So in a forested environment, say in eastern Washington, that's going to mean linking private landowners, state landowners, and federal landowners, and looking at that landscape and say, where do we need to treat the forest in a way that when fire does start, and it will, we live in a fire-prone state, it will start, and we can predict where it'll move across the landscape and make defensible spaces. This works. We have a program called FireWise where we work with homeowners that may live out in fire-prone landscapes. And actually, I have a personal friend who grew up here in Grays Harbor and has moved over there. They built a house on 20 acres. They built it FireWise, using FireWise principles. The Tunk Mountain fire burned through their property. When they left the house, there was fire on both sides of the driveway. When they came back 3 days later, the house was intact. A corner of their cedar fence was slightly burned, and one chicken was dead. And so we know the things we can do to reduce the impact of fire and reduce the size of fire. And so I've had several hearings in my committee, invited scientists in from the University of Washington. And part of the problem is after the big fires around the turn of the last century, I think it was 1910 maybe, northern Montana and Idaho, devastating fires. The fires so large that they create their own weather and literally pull trees out of the ground and throw them ahead. There's such suction going on. And because of events like that, we started suppressing fire, which is a good thing. But we became so successful at it and didn't realize that suppressing catastrophic fires was creating a problem decades later, and that's what we're facing now, is we've got to go back into that fire landscape, those forests that evolved with fire, and reintroduce fire in a controlled fashion in the margins of the fire season in the spring and the fall, and treat that landscape so we don't have the ability of these large catastrophic fires to just race across the landscape if weather conditions are poor, and do a lot of damage and take a lot of lives. And so the commissioner's right, it will cost money, and at some point the legislature's got to step up and fund those efforts. We've in our defense, we've put quite a bit of money in there, and I think we need to have confidence that it will be spent wisely, and the things that need to be done are going to be done. And there's some angst. As I said, previous lands commissioners refused to use fire in their protocols, and it's about thinning, forest thinning, and also controlled fire, not necessarily the slash burns that we grew up with around here. It's a different effort, but it will help make the landscape more resilient. So I hope that answers your question, my friend.
It's always great to hear you talk about this issue because you're so knowledgeable and so thoughtful about your answers. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about public lands and access to public lands, but I'm going to bring somebody else in to join us. But first, really quickly, if you could just talk for a brief minute about why it's so important to have a moderate Democrat from a rural area in the House Democratic Caucus.
Well, I think just generally it's important to have people that have local knowledge and a history and a background. You know, I come out of the logging industry, of a 2-year forestry degree, a degree from Evergreen in environmental studies, and a lifetime of experience. And there are other people out there in the state. That's the beauty of the state legislature, a citizen legislature, to bring that. And specifically within the Democratic caucus, unfortunately, you know, politics has worked the way it has, where folks in the Democratic Party are being elected in urban areas and may not be electing candidates that have some of that natural resource experience. And so I think it is important that I'm inside that caucus and I can speak up and say, wait a minute, that does not work on our rural landscape, and here's why.
And before we move on, I just want to add that having served with you for a year in the legislature, and having served with some of your predecessors, Representative Hatfield and Domet, and I represented an urban/suburban area, and having folks like you and Representative Bill Grant from Walla Walla in our caucus oftentimes gave me a perspective to step back and say, we need to rethink our approach, because what might be good for Snohomish County is not necessarily good for Grays Harbor County. So I really appreciate your input on that. So before we wrap up tonight, I want to bring somebody in that cares a lot about Grays Harbor County. She didn't stay home tonight, but it's very important that we have a change in our county commissioner's race, and put a mom in the county commissioner's office from East Grays Harbor County. So I want to bring Jamie Nichols in with you, Brian, just to talk a little bit about the importance of the county and the state working together. Grays Harbor County has public land. Grays Harbor manages their own forest land. We have private forest land. City of Montesano owns some forest land. So if the two of you could just chat a little bit about the importance of the relationship, in particular, making sure that the public continues to have access to those lands to fish and hunt and hike and recreate. So I'll let you go first and let Jamie jump in.
Yeah, I as you said, having local officials. I look at my relationship with the other jurisdictions, cities, counties, as a partnership. I'm not the ruler of counties or the ruler of cities. So many times I need strong partners, and that's what Jamie Nichols brings to this. I'm confident she'll be a strong partner as a county commissioner for the people in protecting their access to their public lands, working to facilitate access to private lands, respecting private property rights. She's a property owner in this county and understands that balance and the importance of protecting that private property right. And so I've been excited to support Jamie Nichols for county commissioner in Grays Harbor County.
Great. Jamie, why don't you share some of your thoughts?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that my relationship with Brian as a state representative, he's always been somebody that I can call up and let him know any issues that are going on in Grays Harbor, and he fixes those problems. For example, I sit on the Grays Harbor Historical Seaport Board, and we needed help. I called Brian and let him know all the issues, and he was an activist, and he helped Grays Harbor County and bring what we needed to the Lady Washington. And I just appreciate that so much.
Well, Brian, thank you for coming on tonight. I've got a couple more questions on Amy, but I really appreciate you taking time, and I want you to know that the folks up here in Grays Harbor are behind you. We're looking forward to being out sign waving and lit dropping for you as we run down these final 24 days before the election so that we can get you reelected. So thanks for coming on tonight, Brian.
Thank you, folks. See you soon.
And thank you. And we're going to wrap up with Jamie just a couple more minutes before we sign off. Wanted to chat with her just a little tiny bit about the county commissioner being also the county health board, and there's a lot of controversy, in particular her opponent and some of the people that they're working with in the Republican Party don't really believe in wearing masks or taking the proper precautions so that we can get our kids back in school faster, even though the science supports wearing masks. So Jamie, what are your thoughts on wearing masks, how the county commissioners can be involved as a health board and trying to get our kids back to school and get our businesses back open?
So I'm a big supporter of wearing masks. I want to be able to see my grandma. I went to go see her for her birthday, and I had to social distance. And I want to give my grandma a hug, and I can't do that right now until we wear our masks. I want to go back to church, but we can't unless we wear our masks. I do not want to pass, if I'm asymptomatic and I do have COVID, I do not want to pass it on to anybody else in the community. I wear my mask because I have respect for the other people in this community, and I want to protect their health.
Great. And you've taken a pretty strong stand during the time you've been chair of the Grays Harbor Democrats and vice chair, and the positions you've held, and the person that's stepping down, not running for re-election, did some things to hurt the workers and the organized labor unions that work for the county, and you've taken a strong stand in favor of the workers. Can you talk a little bit about that, that bargaining issue and how you approached it as activists and how you'll stand up for the workers if you're a county commissioner?
When it comes to county employees and the contracts that they negotiate, that is between the county employees, the union, and that's it. Well, and the Grace Harbor County Commission Board. But that should be closed contract negotiations and not open to the public. And I'm a firm believer in supporting labor unions.
Thank you. And you're endorsed by most of the labor unions and the labor council. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And so that just about wraps it up for tonight. Jamie Nichols, Democratic candidate, and another woman running for office, I might add. 51% of this county registered voters are women. When women vote, Democrats get elected, and more importantly, when women vote, women get elected to public office. So Democrats and women need to vote in this election so that we can put good people in office, from President Joe Biden, from Vice President Joe Biden, we want him to be president, and Senator Kamala Harris, put them in the White House and put Democrats and women in office in Grace Harbor County all the way down to the county commissioner's office. So we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to wrap up by letting you have the opportunity to listen to the commercials that we bought on the radio.
I had something else, Mike, too. We actually didn't. We actually missed something. So sorry, I wanted to show off my mask that a dear friend gave me.
We missed something. You're wearing your mask. That looks awesome.
Yeah. But in reality, there is actually one endorsement that we have not actually hit on because it's not a candidate. And that is, we have endorsed referendum 90. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss that. This is really important. It's for the, this is the sex ed bill, which having that title kind of gets misaligned. It certainly is being malaligned on by those that are opposing it. And actually, I'm gonna tell a story that I haven't really told anybody, and I'm gonna let you just sit in the background so you don't have to hear this. But I have a really important story to share that I haven't told anybody. I told my mom eventually. When I was young, I grew up in Kelso. I was born in Longview. I lived in Kelso for the first several years of my life. And when I was young, about 4 or 5, I was molested by some neighbor kids in South Kelso. And I didn't know what was going on. Nobody had ever talked to me about it. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew not to say anything. I didn't say anything for, when I say years, I mean decades. I didn't want anybody to know because I didn't want my mom to know. If referendum 90 had been in place in 1980, probably wouldn't have sat on it all these years. So when I see Me Too, I believe her, that kind of thing, I take it personal. I've been there. Referendum 90 will be devastating to predators, and we absolutely must approve referendum 90 so that kids have the tools they need at a young age to say when things have happened to them that shouldn't. Referendum 90 is absolutely vital that we pass. Please do so. You're going to hear all kinds of things from people that don't want it to pass, and that terrifies me too. So I wanted to do that. Mike had no idea that was coming. But I wanted to put that out there that I'm really passionate about, that this happens so that kids have those tools in place. And we do have some great ads, including one, so I'm done on that. One that I'm the closing ad. Actually, we've got a few. I'm going to show some radio ads. I'm going to mix in, and I've got a very special ad that you're going to love from Samuel L. Jackson. So I'm going to go ahead and start running those, Mike. And
perfect. And we'll just sign off when those are over. Thank you, Stephen, for producing this, and and our chair, Jamie Nichols. And just remember, you can donate ghdemocrats.org.
All right, very good. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight, and we're going to run some ads. Thank you everybody that joined in and joined the broadcast too. Thank you.
Biden, Inslee, and Everson are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to elect Joe Biden president, re-elect Governor Jay Inslee, and elect Mariana Everson state representative because they put people and public safety first before politics. Paid for by Grays Harbor County Democrats, P.O. Box 1423.
The time for proven progressive leadership is now.
Denny Heck, the Democrat for lieutenant governor who's taken Trump on.
The truth is, there is a mountain of evidence Donald Trump is manifestly unfit to be president of the United States.
Denny Heck, a respected champion of fairness and justice.
And a job creator, uniquely prepared to help restore our economy. Proven progressive leadership.
That's Democrat Denny Heck.
Paid for by Heck for lieutenant governor, Democrat.
When Joe Biden wants an update on the virus, he calls on the nation's top health experts. Working together for all Americans is what Joe does. When writing his healthcare plan, Joe Biden worked with both doctors and patients to make healthcare affordable by lowering premiums, reducing drug costs, and protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Joe listened to both small business owners and workers to create his economic plan that cuts taxes for middle-class families, creates 18 million new jobs in his first term, and raises wages by as much as $15,000 a year. Joe Biden's plans will help working families immediately by making the super rich finally pay their fair share. For Joe, it's never been about ego. It's always been about the work he can do for working families. It's what he's always done. Joe Biden brings everyone to the table and gets it done.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Kilmer, Franz, Heck, and Nichols are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to re-elect Congressman Derek Kilmer and Lands Commissioner Hillary Franz. Elect Denny Heck, Lieutenant Governor, and Jamie Nichols, County Commissioner, because they put people and public safety first before politics.
I ran for governor to help working Washingtonians. Not just in good times, but also in tough times like now. We've accomplished a lot together. We secured health coverage for nearly 800,000 Washingtonians, raised salaries for educators, and partnered with business to provide apprenticeships for students. We're developing a clean energy economy with thousands of good-paying jobs, created the nation's best paid family medical leave, and the first long-term care benefit for our seniors. But we all know COVID-19 is hitting us hard. We had the first cases. We've endured heartache and uncertainty. I know a lot has been asked of you. We are turning the tide because Washingtonians are helping each other to protect our health, to rebuild our economy. I see strength and resilience from the people of Washington every day. We will get through this together.
Jay Inslee for governor.
Vandewey, Theringer, Chapman, and Nichols are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to re-elect Senator Kevin Vandewey, State Representatives Steve Theringer and Mike Chapman, and elect Jamie Nichols, County Commissioner, because they put people and public safety first before politics. Paid for by Grays Harbor County Democrats, P.O. Box 1423, Aberdeen, Washington. Taco, Blake, and Nichols are common sense leaders we can trust. Healthy forests, fisheries, and farms are critical to the future of tourism and economic development in Grays Harbor County. We need to re-elect Senator Dean Taco, State Representative Brian Blake, and elect Jamie Nichols, County Commissioner, because they put people and public safety first before politics. Paid for by Grays Harbor County Democrats, P.O. Box 142.
Voter suppression has taken many forms.
People have been denied the right to vote for well now 80 years.
First, they used the poll tax to keep black folks from voting. Then, it was the literacy test, racial terrorism, and violence.
I don't want everybody to vote.
New day, same old dirty tricks.
There are those in power who are doing their darndest to discourage people from voting.
Calls for investigations after claims of voter suppression.
President Trump sabotaging efforts to vote by mail.
If your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to take it from you. Vote early. Vote like your life depends on it. I'm exercising my right to vote, and you should too. Not because I want you to, but because he doesn't. Vote, damn it! Vote!